this week has been a bit of a road bump for your relationship with the Indian community. How bad is this road bump?
Well, I agree with you. We got smashed, to use the words of my leader Susan Lee, in the last two elections, and that means we need to get back the votes of Australians right across the board, and that includes Indian Australians, it includes Chinese Australians, it includes Persian Australians, it includes all the different Australians that make up my electorate. I want to say unreservedly that I apologise for the remarks that were made by Jacinta Price this week.
Why can't we get Senator Price to apologise? She's walked them back, but she's not apologised, has she?
Well, I am saying this on my behalf as the federal member for Barara, as the co-chair of the Parliamentary Friends of India, as someone who has got a very long-term friendship with the Indian community, that I'm sorry for any offence that those comments have caused. And I'm pleased that she's walked them back, and I'm pleased that Susan Lee said that those comments were wrong.
No apologies from her?
The important thing here is that we draw a line under this and we move forward, and we acknowledge the extraordinary contribution Indian Australians have made. Indian Australians have been in this country since the 1830s. As I've pointed out many times, in my community we established a cenotaph to honour the dozen Indians that fought with the AIF in World War I. These were people that had to jump a race bar in order to fight with the AIF. Some of them made the supreme sacrifice. Today there are Indian Australians who are engaged in every level of our society, from top company CEOs to people who are cleaning our office buildings. In every part of Australia, the Indian community is there. My experience, my knowledge of the Indian community is that they make a wonderful contribution, that they are law-abiding, they are engaged in all manner of community activity, RFS, the S, Rotary clubs, PNCs.
Sure. Yeah.
We want more. We want more people to come to Australia and adopt that view.
But Julian, let's look at the anti-migration rally which took place Sunday last week. How did you feel when the Indian community got singled out, especially that there are more of them who have arrived in the last 5 years than the Italian and the Greek community?
Well, I had a sense of disgust. I condemned the rally on that basis, and I said, look, there might be good people there that want to change the policy of our country and might want to attend those rallies, but be careful of the company that you keep. And I think those flyers that attack the Indian community should have been a signal to people not to go to the rallies.
And in terms of the neo-Nazis over there, which has obviously sent a shiver through our society.
Absolutely.
Do you think the government needs to come down harder on these elements in our society?
I do, and I've been saying this for 2 years, that I don't think either the federal government or the Victorian government, where some of this neo-Nazi activity was at its highest, have taken these issues seriously. What we've seen since the terrorist attacks in Israel on the 7th of October has been a growing social unrest in this country. The best thing that you can do when you have this social unrest is to enforce the law rigorously and evenly. And the fact that in Victoria we keep having protests to the far left and the far right there, and the Victorian Police Commissioner and the Victorian Premier refuse to act as we have in New South Wales, permit laws and move on laws, is a disgrace. Law-abiding Australians of whatever background are entitled to the full protection of the law. There is no place on our streets or in our country for the voices of hate.
What would you do should you be in a position of power to enact some of these harsh penalties?
Well, since the period that we've been in opposition, we have been pushing the government to enact tougher hate crime laws. We pushed for mandatory minimum sentences for hate crimes at the beginning of the year. The government had to be dragged kicking and screaming to do that. And we'd send directions to the police that they need to enforce the law and round people up and bring them in when they're engaged in these hate crimes.
Right. Now, in terms of, we've had the politicians do put a warm embrace around the Indian community. We have had, in the first 3 days after the rally, talk about neo-Nazis and their march. In the second half of the week, there was obviously the fallout from Senator Price's comments. But I haven't seen too many political parties talk about the value of migration. Well, why is that? I mean, so where do you stand on migration? Do we need more people coming into this country? How do you balance that?
Well, I think the first thing is Australia is a country of migrants. Other than our Indigenous Australians, we've all come here from migrant backgrounds, and migrants have helped bring great skills to this country. And one of the things I love about the migrants that come here is that they see strengths and opportunities in our country that those of us who are born here take for granted. We do need migration to Australia, but we need a policy conducted in the right way, and that means bringing people.
So where did the policy go wrong? Because the gripe has been against housing, infrastructure, and overall social services. When did we go wrong?
Well, I think we went wrong in the last 3 years. There's been a massive spike in the numbers that have come to Australia, and as I say, we do need.
But isn't that because of the post-COVID spike?
So some of that is COVID, but some of it has just continued. And the policy that
But
we
it's
took
coming down on a year-to-year basis as things stabilise.
So the policy that we took to the last election, and our policies are now up for review, but the policy we took to the last election is that we didn't want to bring more people than we could house. We needed to have a pause to let the housing market catch up.
Do you think we are in a position to have a pause? I would say if we look at it, the productivity of the nation is a bit slow at the moment. It's basically the new migrants who are coming in, which according to most of the economists is keeping the GDP vibrant. So do you think that we can afford to allow migration to go down?
We need to have the right number of migrants here.
What's that number?
Well, I'm not going to pull a number out of my hat
Well,
today.
you've obviously looked at it closely enough.
And
you're very involved in this. Do you have a number in mind? Because nobody wants to commit to a number.
So
as a migrant Indian Australian, that's where I find it frustrating that nobody's willing to commit to a number but make lots of statements around it.
And unfortunately, we are not the government of the country, and we are not going to be the government of the country.
But you are the alternative government, so there
We
has
are.
to be a counter number put over there.
And we are now looking at all of our policies. We're not looking at changing our values, but we are looking at changing our policies.
The former leader, Peter Dutton, had wanted to cut it down by about $100,000 people to what was the current, what was the best number at that time, which was about 295,000. Do you think that's the kind of number we need to aim for?
Well, I think the number that we're going to be looking for will be the number that will be relevant in 3 years' time, at the time that we're looking to come to the election. So Australians have a good idea as to what the clear choice is. But we're not in government the next couple of years.
So, sorry, I need to go back to when you said that we need to pause on migration.
Yes. That was, as I said, that was the policy that we took to the last election, that we needed to pause migration level because we weren't able to meet
Julian,
meet
why
the
are
demand
we blaming
for
the migrants for this? At the end of the day, it's a government issue that they forgot to plan for infrastructure during COVID times and post-COVID times. Are we just finding the migrants as scapegoats, which is what gives rise to those anti-migration rallies and the rise of neo-Nazis blaming the Indians and so on and so forth?
No, and absolutely not. And I reject the premise of that question entirely. And I put forward my own record on these things. I have been a long-standing supporter of the Indian community. I've been a long-standing supporter of multiculturalism in this country, well predating my time in the Parliament.
But our migrants used as scapegoats at the moment because the government doesn't have, and neither did the previous government, put into place any housing and infrastructure policies.
Well, I also reject that idea too. And one of the important things that we were trying to do while we were in government was to match up the number of people that were coming here with the numbers of people that could be accommodated in Australia. And that's why for the first time you had Scott Morrison getting the state premiers around the table to come up with what was the right number for the demands of the states. That's the right way to come up with a number for the migration program for the country.
Right. Julian, you're in charge of the parliamentary, or you're part of the Parliamentary Friends of India. Now, I've been getting calls from India. I've been getting calls from my friends across the world about these rallies and anti-Indian sentiment over there. How badly have the relationship between India and Australia, especially Australia's record on multiculturalism, been affected in other countries, do you think?
Well, I can't speak for other countries, but what I can say is that here in Australia, it's really important that we have a strong relationship with India. And when we were in government, we burnished that relationship. The trade agreement, the interoperability agreement, the comprehensive strategic partnership. The rise of India is an unalloyed good for Australia, and we need to bolster that relationship because it's good for our trade, it's good for our opportunities in terms of defence, it's good for our... we are the two great democracies in our region, and we need to do more to continue to build.
My last question, with the changing dynamics of the geopolitical situations globally, how important is the India-Australia relationship going forward, especially in Quad and other places?
Well, it's vital, and this is why we've been so critical of the Prime Minister's failure to meet with the President of the United States. It's very important that the President of the United States hears directly from our Prime Minister about the importance of institutions like the Quad, because it sends an important signal, not only between Australia and the United States, but to India and Japan as well, about how important that relationship is.
Julian Leeser, thank you very much for your time.
PAWAN, always good to be with you.
Thank you.